Welcome to channel An Harmony of Life. As I said in the previous video, today we will explore the secret of transformation and integration of the masculine and the feminine, how man and woman can be one flesh. A secret which was codified in the Old Testament and the New Testament, but which was very well expressed and summarized in one of the sayings of Yeshua, collected in the so-called fifth gospel, the Nazarene Gospel of Thomas Didymus, name which is quite symbolic since it comes from Tauma, which in Aramaic means twin, and from the Greek Didymus, which means twin as well. Therefore, it refers to one of the divine twins of the soul, and it would be the psyche that receives instruction from the other twin, the intuitive mind from the spirit of life, which in this case is represented by Yeshua himself, who says the following: "When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make male and female into a single unity, so that the male will not be male, or the female be female, then you will enter the kingdom of heaven, Malkut Hashamayim, which is not a place, but rather our connection with the fullness of our true being." So, the text is not talking about achieving a pseudo-mystic monism where everything dissolves into an abstract unity or absolute void, as it's suggested in some teachings. And of course, it does not encourage anyone to shift gender, for this would be part of the imbalance experienced by a humanity that does not understand the true expression of feminine and masculine. As we already saw in the story of the book of Genesis, we are told that the soul of humanity was split into two poles, the masculine and feminine pole, man and woman outside, Adam and Hava, which in Hebrew wisdom represent the intuitive mind and the emotional or even rational psyche, which would be represented by Hava, Eve. And these must know each other in order to work together and be one flesh consciously in the body. Yet, as we saw in the previous episode, on a higher level, they are already integrated, united. And we must only connect with our unfallen nature through contact with the intelligent heart that discerns and embraces in silence without resisting, expressing the true loving nature, ahava, love, which in Hebrew means to open a space where truth and life can really grow. For only when we are connected with our wholeness can we interact with others, with ourselves, without finding conflict or division. So what's the true relation of masculine and feminine? Unfortunately, in our society, the masculine is usually associated with violence, domination, destruction, control. But in reality, this is not correct, for these qualities are the result of the perversion of both the masculine and the feminine. The masculine qualities par excellence would be attention, discipline, discernment, always used to fix something, to rectify something. That's why man likes to fix things at home, to be acknowledged for his works, to be admired for the solutions he brings. And if a man does not repair or rectify internal or external situations, then he becomes passive, frustrated, and emotions eventually take over him. So he must also find balance from the sacred feminine quality, which would be receptivity, intuition, and compassion, a heart that feels, listens, and is also capable of suffering in silence. However, in order to feel this feminine sphere, he must develop his masculine side first. Because when the masculine and the feminine are not properly integrated and balanced, they get disconnected. And then uncontrolled emotions emerge, leading to a sick, obsessive attention, the desire to exert control over others, or demand attention from others. It is what Hebrew wisdom knows as a spirit of the strange woman. And in some cases, this strange woman makes man feel confused, makes him express violently, or even makes him want to shift his gender. This might happen, for instance, when he did not receive proper love and attention from his father during childhood. And the same applies for women, but on the other way around. And there are times when a man can even be born with the soul of a woman, although he will not necessarily have opposite tendencies. In a way, it might be easier for him to feel like a woman, but at the same time, he must be able to think like a man. And the more a man is able to connect with his being of true light and express his masculinity, his discipline, discernment, and active attention, he also becomes more receptive and compassionate. His feminine part develops in a balanced way, making him even more noble and admirable. But how many men want to be admired today for these true qualities and not for their superegos, their trophies or possessions? How many know them? As for the women, many consider her as a bunch of uncontrolled emotions and see her as manipulative. But again, these are not her true natural qualities. The conscious woman is receptive, does not want to fix or rectify anything, even if she does many things. She simply tends to want to be recognized, to be admired for what she is, for her beauty, her capacity to suffer, to nourish, to express love that unites people, especially family members. And the more connected she is to her natural loving being, the more magnetism she irradiates without manipulation or demanding love from others, not even from her partner or husband, because she has everything inside. Interestingly, Hebrew sages say that the soul of the pure woman does not need to be rectified, because in some way she is perfect, she naturally feels divine oneness, although it is true that she needs to express this gift, something for which she needs masculine qualities and interaction with a true man, or at least to connect with the inner master, anointed with true love, light of conscience, life and peace, which in this case act as the righteous husband. The anointed master becomes her true inner husband. So rather than performing certain works to fix or to correct her soul, her task is rather to preserve her sexuality and heart without perversion. For a woman who becomes shameless, judgmental, begins to disconnect from her true being. And if she becomes wicked, then she loses all her receptivity, all her mercy, and eventually she turns into a witch without solution. At the same time that she destroys herself, she destroys everyone around her. And not even a good man would be able to transform the heart of a witch. Only the divine being might be able, but it's quite difficult. In contrast, the virtuous woman is able to help a man develop, or even able to transform the heart of a wicked man. Maybe this is why we hear that behind every great man there is a great woman. For it is often the woman who helps man to rectify his soul and not the other way around. And this is because the more receptive and compassionate a woman is, the more she connects with her being of true light, and the more grows also her capacity for attention and discipline, the masculine side. For example, the more a woman loves her baby, the more attention and care she gives him. This is why in Proverbs 12:4 we hear, "The virtuous woman is the crown of her husband, while the shameless woman is the rottenness of his bones." And the message is for both, because if the husband does not have a virtuous woman, maybe it is because he does not deserve her, because he has not developed in himself his conscious attention, discernment. He has been carried away by his criticism, his emotions, the estranged woman. And if the woman does not find a proper husband, it might be because she got disconnected from her true being and did not choose wisely, or because she did not help her partner or husband develop. For example, if the woman exposes or criticizes the man in public, this usually generates a friction which has very bad consequences. In Hebrew wisdom, this is called breaking the covering of light. And this is what happens in a world without instruction of light. Each one seeks their own interest, and the fault always is attributed to the other. As for taking responsibility and evolve together, very few like it. In our society, people do not even know what it means to be a man or a woman, masculine or feminine, because everything has become very relative. On the other hand, when there is a covering of true light, men and women help each other to evolve. And when both develop, neither man demands attention or seeks completeness in women or other men, nor vice versa. Going even further, in 1 Corinthians 7, Apostle Paul writes that it is good for man not to touch a woman in the most sexual sense of the term. The Gospels also speak of the spiritual eunuch, which was misinterpreted as a religious chastity. But in reality, these passages refer to the man able to feel complete, united to his inner spiritual head, the truly anointed master. And Paul also states that, on contrary case, it is better for a man to find a woman, obviously with a complementary soul, that helps him rectify his own soul. And if a woman is not well connected to her anointed master, it's also convenient to find a proper man with a complementary soul. Now, the true union of man and woman begins within us. Then, only then, can union take place outside without conflicts. Each woman finds then the type of man that complements her and vice versa. The complementary souls find each other without problem when true love and light are in control, for it's our true being what unites. But if there is interference from the ego personality, then the spirit of adversity takes over. So to make man and woman one flesh is really to live from our authentic being, where the masculine and the feminine are balanced and reunited, gathered together. In Galatians 3:28, Paul writes, "There is no man or woman, because you are all one in the one, anointed with the divine name of salvation." Later we'll see what this means. He also says, "Neither the man is without the woman, nor the woman without the man in the master." Corinthians 11:11. Numbers which are not a coincidence, since they refer to the union of the inner twins of the soul, which bring an external union. And only in this context can we understand some expressions that were misinterpreted in a male chauvinist sense. For instance, in 1 Corinthians 11:3, Apostle Paul says, "I want you to know that the head of every man is the anointed one, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of the anointed one is God," referring to the Father of lights. And Paul also writes, "Wives, submit to your husbands as to the master." Ephesians 5:22, Colossians 3:18, and this also appears in 1 Peter chapter 3. But we must understand that the apostles lived in a time when the mind of women was not as developed as it might be today, due to a repressive culture where woman was not allowed to study. Anyway, some Jewish apostles like Paul understood that women did not need to rectify their soul with the masculine mind and works, because this makes woman very dogmatic, cold and intellectual. And when men and women work in harmony, they are one flesh. They respect each other, and in this sense, the husband can play the role of head without dominating the woman. And we also know that in ancient days, women were regarded as having great ability to prophesy because of their great sensitivity. But to be able to prophesy without being dominated by emotional falsehood, they must have the covering of light, the spiritual head, or at least be in touch with a man who can discern the false from the true without trying to rule a religious movement. This was important in antiquity. And at Paul's time, the problem was that some women began to prophesy by receiving strange spirits, giving rise to misunderstanding and religious groups, as it happens today, for instance, with New Age movements that promote the worship of goddesses, ascended masters, aliens. And it is in this context that Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 14:34, "Women keep silence in the congregations." And in 1 Corinthians 11 he adds, "Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered, namely without anointed mind, dishonors his head. And every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, since it is as if her head were shaven. And then Paul adds, this is why the woman must wear a sign of subjection on the head because of the angels. This means that the veil women put on their head was precisely a symbol of respect for the covering of their angelic being of light, their spiritual head, but also a symbol of protection against fallen angels that sent messages women had to prophesy. Anyway, we should not forget that there were great women leaders and followers of Yeshua's teaching. One example was Thecla, an apostle woman who worked hand in hand with Apostle Paul, and in fact they appear together in at least one depiction of the early 1st century. But without doubt, the greatest example of follower of Yeshua was Mary Magdalene, Marianne, who was regarded not just as a follower, but as a pure vessel of his teaching on love. She assimilated love on a very intimate spiritual level, more even than the apostles. We can see this in the Gospels, in Luke 7 and other passages. We find enough data to associate Mary Magdalene with the sinful woman who carries the alabaster jar full of oil to anoint, and she falls at the feet of the Master Yeshua. Full of tears, she kisses them, dries them up with her hairs, and then anoints his head with a very expensive oil, all of which is symbol of her true, deep spiritual love. In fact, Master Yeshua tells Peter that when he visited him in his house, Peter did not wash his feet with water, nor anointed him, nor kissed him. And however, this woman was able to love like none of those present in the house. Reason why she was more worthy of forgiveness. It is a passage full of great depth. Now, all of this means that the ideas concerning women in antiquity must be understood in context. For instance, there is a passage in the Gospel of Thomas where Peter tells Master Yeshua that Marianne, Mary Magdalene, should not be with them, with the apostles, because women do not deserve it. And Yeshua answers very ironically, then I shall guide her to make her male, so she too may become a living spirit, resembling you males. For every female who makes herself male will enter in the kingdom of heaven. Now, as I said, this has nothing to do with the woman becoming transgender. Becoming a man in this context means to govern the emotions and thoughts, to become an anthropos, which in Greek means a being higher than the animals, which is able to become a living spirit, a corporeal, divine soul. And in that sense, a woman can be a man or Adam who embodies the divine name with the four qualities: true love, light, life, and peace. And without doubt, the greatest example of living spirit, of anointed man, was Yeshua himself. In another episode, I already explained the passage of 1 Timothy 2:5, where Paul writes that there is only one mediator between God and men, and this mediator would be the anthropos, man anointed with the divine name, man whom Paul calls Christos Jesus, which he identifies with the last Adam in 1 Corinthians 15. where Paul also calls him vivifying spirit, since the Anointed One is no longer a human soul or even the living soul of first Adam, because Yeshua became a divine neuron, literally, able to inspire from the divine brain all of the love, light, life, and peace of the Father without deception. Unfortunately, our language is very superficial, and anthropos is usually translated as man in the sense of human male. This is why we hear about the mediator as the historic Yeshua, or even the human Jesus Christ, which is a syncretic expression associated with the historic Messiah. And all this leads to misunderstandings because an external man cannot mediate between us and the divine. Only the divine can mediate by expressing itself through each one of us, turning us into spiritual males, so to say. This is why in Philippians 2, Paul explains that living a human condition, Yeshua received the name above all names after overcoming the dictates of his human soul, not doing what his emotional ego wanted, but rather emptying himself to receive the divine will. And this is how his human soul, or nephesh in Hebrew, was transformed into a living spirit, a human soul attached to a divine neuron. And thus he was able to sit, as the Gospels say, at the right hand of the Father of lights, on the right hemisphere of the cosmic brain, so to say. And this is how he became the first example of the last Adam, the cosmic soul, which is masculine in relation to us, humans, and can beget spiritual souls, gathering human souls within the fullness of true being. However, the soul or psyche of the average human is still very feminine and rebellious because emotions dominate. Humans are often soul and body governed by a spirit of division, when the natural order should be the spirit of life governing the psyche and the body. And this is what Paul teaches in 1 Thessalonians 5:23. And may the same being of peace sanctify you completely, and may your whole being, spirit, psyche, and body, be preserved irreproachable for the coming of our Master, anointed with the divine name of salvation. And this name is culturally expressed as Jesus, or in Hebrew as Yehoshua, which are codes. Sacred names are always codes of understanding. So the coming of the Messiah is not in the future. It has nothing to do with a man in the clouds. But this coming is now, when we are what we must be, letting divine mind hold the strange woman that tries to possess inside us. Woman which is none other than the fallen soul of first Adam, regarded as harlot since it mixed with other creatures in the past. And this is why the fallen soul is represented with those mythological beings, half human, half animal, whose spirit continues to possess humanity. So our first step is to be what in Hebrew is known as Alma, the maiden, which is the body of the Anointed One, who is the head or divine mind of our true being. We must be able to feel the loving nature of our divine body in order to connect with our truly divine head. Only then can the spirit of completeness take control over our life. Because as Master Yeshua said, the foxes have dens and the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Matthew 8:20. In the next episode, I will continue revealing deeper secrets that have to do with recovering our true original being, which, as we will see, always existed in the Anointed One, the cosmic soul, being part of the divine family that reconciles all opposites above and below. We'll see how the key is summarized on the secret of the divine name that helps us be in peace with ourselves, with others, and with the entire cosmos. But as I said, it will be in the next episode, if the divine allows it. Down below you have the links to the web of Vital Orientation and the blog. Leave comments and questions if you wish. And may true love open the space so that the light of truth, the fullness of life, and true serenity grow in us. See you in the next episode.